Yavatuhu Pani Enchamukinila Kayo Kashtu.
And let's start the last section of this third module, the 4 elements. We have a little bit more time for that. 4 elements and principles. We're going to be covering this through the next 10 sessions, okay? So if I don't really cover everything then today, then that's okay, because we're going to be just seeing it and seeing it and seeing it, because it's the core mathematical number of all of Mesoamerican culture, the number 4. The division of the duality into 4 sections that create 4 sides of the universe, 4 elements, 4 directions. And then all American cultures, North and South American, have these 4 directions very prevalent. These 4 symbols, these 4 colors, 4 creations, 4 humanities, 4 etc., etc., etc. It does vary throughout the cultures and periods and the teachers, the specific location of each one of the elements, the color assigned to each one of the elements. And I'm going to try and give you all, or not maybe all, but at least more than one version of that, so that you can understand how it can be placed in different locations and still make sense, okay? And I know sometimes it's confusing because sometimes we want just a very simple thing, and there's nothing simple about this. But at the same time, it is as simple as just 4 directions, as just 4 elements. Even the Chinese made it kind of more complex because they have 5 elements, and then even then had this situation of the 5 elements being changed of place. I think it was after Lao Tse. I'm not sure if it was him or Confucius, but one of those guys changed the arrangement of the elements. And same thing happens in the Maya world. I'm going to try to make my version of that for you guys, how I understand it. This is a map. This contains a whole lot of things that we'll be studying. This contains the core of the cosmology we'll be learning. This is kind of like that cosmological map, that map of the universe that this course is assigned to teach. And I've had to give you all the context of all the sessions we've had till now to be able to start this with some context and with you guys having some preparation. And so it's not just this cheesy, quick, you're gonna be having to study later on by yourself, because in this course you're not gonna learn anything. So I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that. I am really wanting to give you as much information as I can. So what do we see here? We see the creator couple. See, that's a prevalent, omniscient thing that's right in the middle, right in the center. They're giving their heads, their backs to each other. Some may say this is a tree in the middle. It kind of looks like a tree. We have seen that there's this very weird tree that's not really tree, cross that's not really cross, plant that's not really a plant. But there's always kind of this pillar element right in the middle of of the most symbolical and kind of sacred Maya scriptures. In this case, this is really interesting how there's no flowers, there's no snakes. It's just kind of lines that go up, and there's this thing that maybe it represents the sky, and then you have these kind of ladders. Is this lightning? Is this the opening of a dimension of the higher? Is this maybe this is a core? It's like a single line, like the chords, the theory of chords, or string theory. There is, and the Toltecs do describe this, the world, the cosmos being a kind of like a chord of a whole bunch of chords. But then when creation is created in this active part of the cosmos, this chord that otherwise was very neatly intertwined, it spreads out and becomes a whole mess of different lines of different chords, and each one of the chords, each one of the strings is an intention, an intent, or a snake. Maybe this represents that. You have the woman on the left. She does look feminine. I guess they both look old, but the man looks ugly, huh? The woman, you can probably tell it's the woman because she's not, is not as ugly as the man. I mean, what do you say? Nobody ever told me this is the man, this is the woman. I just see it. And so the women here, the symbols of water, this would be a symbol of water. This would be a symbol of the ik sign or the air sign, but then sometimes some interpret it as the corn. And from that, a snake is coming up. Some might interpret that as the corn seed and the corn plant. Maybe that's not really it, or maybe it is it, because then the seed is on top of water, and with water and the seed you get life. And the male has 3 symbols of that seed, or 3 symbols of this ik sign. Surrounding this, you have the 20 signs of the Cholquij, of the Tzolk'in, of the Tonalamat, the Tonalpowali, the 20 Tonal, the 20 Quijab, the 20 signs, which are the core language of all Maya and Mesoamerican cosmology. By understanding these 20 signs, you will understand everything else, what we have seen and what you will see. By understanding these 20 signs, you have the core language. You will have a language that is even better than a spoken written language to understand Maya worldview and Mesoamerican worldview. And may I say that I have found evidences of this language, of this code, of this 2013 code in other cultures. And I believe that it was not created by the Mayas. I believe that the Mesoamericans, I believe that the Mesoamericans were inheritors of this knowledge from an earlier civilization. Okay? Other civilizations had it too, but I guess these guys did a better job at developing it, of keeping it and even expanding it and making more sense to it. So here you see the 20 signs around them. And from here you see the 4 directions. The symbols of the specific direction is this one right here. So here you would have the east would be down here. Okay, the east would be this sign. This is the sun, and this is another 4 directions symbol, and that means that the sun is rising. So the direction where the sun rises, that is the natural. And let's keep in mind then that our physical world where we live in already has this naturally, right? We're already shaped by the fact that the sun comes out of in one side and comes down in the other side, and then you have a North Pole that is like in the middle of that, and that at the North Pole you have a North Star, and this would be the symbol of the North and the symbol of the North Star and the symbol of the northern star god, Shamanek, which, by the way, has this cute word that sounds like shaman in Maya, Shamanek, which means the North Star, which just magically happens to be a star that is right in the point of rotation of the Earth. And if you're far enough north in the northern hemisphere, you can see it, and you can then know that we're rotating, and then you can, by your simple means of observation, know how the whole universe works. The whole universe is self-explanatory. So, and then of course you can take this into a level of worldview where you're not perceptually trying to explain the physics and the rotations and the movements of the stars, but you perceive a four direction plane, which would be kind of a flat Earth kind of worldview, right? So in this, we shouldn't fall into fanaticisms, right? I mean, we have to understand that we have to have all the knowledge, okay? So for me, flat Earth is a worldview that, if you contextualize it properly, it makes sense. But then, of course, you can simply just sit down and see how there is a sphere and there's rotation and everything works on spherical basis, and there is, and even you cannot come to this understanding if you just deny that, right? If you think it doesn't exist. This is very deep stuff that I don't want to get into, but I would say that as we, I mean, what is the, or let's get into it. What is the, how do we see creation? Do we see it from our standpoint? No. Because then, of course, the scientific, the modern academic model and the scientific way of thinking of mainstream science thinks that you can observe the universe without an observer, which is nonsense. You cannot do that. And then if you bring in this assemblage point thing, and then all of this other non-mainstream scientific knowledge, then the observer creates the observed. And then we live in an interactive creation where the physicality is only part of it, right? So even if within the understanding of the dynamics of this physicality, you can't really have flights if you have if you think that the physicality is really a flat Earth situation, then you can, and you would have to deny satellites, which you can naturally just observe. Then there is, but then it can be useful to go about in the world. I mean, to perceive the world because that's what I'm trying to say. In some ways, a four-direction plane makes a lot of sense, okay? And we cannot go into a life just thinking everything is spherical. We do have to understand that for us as perceivers, we do interact and live in a kind of a four-dimensional or three-dimensional space, right? The physicality does have this kind of planes, kind of this, everything in the universe is curved, right? But at the same time, as we perceive it, it's not that curved. We do actually see straight lines, and we do use straight lines, and we do use lineality, and we do need to have this lineal way of thinking too, which I've been debunking all along. We do have that too, a lineal way of thinking, a measuring, a measurement. So we just have to learn to balance everything and to open into multi-dimensional thinking. Okay, so the Mayans and the Mesoamericans had this four directions worldview, and you can see it is depicted in a very flat, squared kind of thing. And if you see the pyramids, a lot of them are squared. So there is this kind of duality of the circle, like philosophy, the circle worldview, and the square worldview. Okay? And they both make sense. They both exist. Maybe the square is not so squared. I mean, if you zoom out of the square, it'll look like a circle eventually, right? Maybe everything is really from a circle. Everything is circular. Everything is bended. Everything is curved. Nothing is really straight. Nothing is really lineal. And from that, the modern understanding of astrophysics makes complete sense, okay? And there is things that they do send out there, out in space. And space is a real thing. And you can observe the planets. And the Mayas and the Mesoamericans observed the movement of the planets and understood them with the same precision we understand now. And you can't do that if you go into fanaticisms or denial. So I don't want to, I don't know why I went so far into that. But so the four directions, we saw the north, the Mahakutag is another word, Mahakutag, Likin, Chikin for the west. So the sun sets in the west. And then, no, this is the Mahakutag, the Iki Balam, I'm sorry. Mahakutag, the north, Iki Balam, the south, or Ikin, or Ikich, Balam, the Jawar sun in the south. Each one of the directions gets just the whole world of interpretations and the whole history of the gods that have been placed there, and the elements and the birds and the plants that belong to each one of the elements. I'm going to show you quickly. This is a Mixtec version of the same thing, but in this version you can see that there is specific plants that are placed and a specific bird that is placed in each one of the directions. So each one of the directions has its own gods, its own plants, its own symbols, its own kind of world. There are four worlds, four directions. So let's keep in mind that the plane we live in, this what seems to be like a flat surface that we're in, and where we can guide ourselves. The easiest way to guide ourselves is by having a four-direction map, a squared map, a compass that points to the north, and we have four main directions. That intertwines, that meshes with an even broader perception and conception of the creation of the world, where there is four essential energies and four essential directions beyond this physical plane that we live in, beyond this planet we live in, beyond this perception of this time and space that our eyes see and that our bodies feel. Okay, and that is symbolically represented in these charts. So these charts are not specifically, it's not that these birds you will find to the east and these plants you will find to the north. No. It's a symbolical representation, but then it's not just these symbols don't come out of just pure because they just decided to make it that way. No, there is a profound observation of the nature of our own psyches, of the world, and we're going to be learning that, and that's how I'm going to be teaching this cosmos that we living, for different directions of the universe, which are assigned an element. I did explain that the elements get rearranged later on, and it gets all more complicated. I was studying Chinese I Ching, and we're just Taoism. And same thing happens where there's a primordial Bagua and a manifestation Bagua. So same thing happens here. There's a primordial ordering of the elements, and then there is the manifestation of the elements, but we're going to understand it from a Hun Imosh Tzolk'in disposition and a Hun Bat Tzolk'in or disposition, which I will explain once we get into the Tzolk'in. So first, we're going to go into just the elements, just the 4 elements. In this image, they would be located on this would be the north. How do we find the direction? Well, you look for this sign right here, the Liking. So this is the east. So everything always begins to the east because that's where the sun comes out of, and everything's so sun oriented in Mesoamerican and in most cultures. The sun is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing. So where it comes out of, that's where things are born, where energies are born. And you're going to see that there's, as you go deeper into the study of Mesoamerican worldview and cosmology and calendars, that different cultures and different teachers will place different gods on each one of the directions. Some of them coincide, some of them don't. And we need to understand, are they following the primordial order, or are they teaching the manifestation order, or the action order, or the time and space, Nacht order? And so it gets really complex, where what gods, what energies, what plants, what seeds, what flowers, what animals get placed in each one of the elements and each one of the directions. And so we're going to see just what I understand to be the primordial and the best way to understand it as well. So we begin with the east here in the Likin, which here it's on the south, or the south of the page. And then it goes to the north, then it goes to the west. You see the same Kin sign here. It's kind of faded out because of this is an old codex. And there's a hand symbol here, which is a Kech sign, or a deer sign, which means can be understood as it's being grabbed. The sun has been grabbed by the earth. The sun is coming out. The Lord Sun is pushing the sun out, and the sun is being grabbed or taken by the earth. In many cases, this will be the axis of masculine and feminine. So masculine will be the east. The sun coming out is the masculine energy, the sun wanting to rise, the energy wanting to be bright. And you can see how men are like that. Men want to shine in the world, men want to be somebody in life. And women are more of, well, I'm already something in life. Why would I want to be something, right? it's this objective subjective um, dialogue or duality. So the West, where the sun sets, is the feminine side, and in some Mexica traditions, it is called Tlahuistlampa, the region, the land of light, and Cihuatlampa, the land of womanhood or femininity. So the woman is more into making so man is like, I want to manifest this, and then who manifests it, who makes it real, who makes it happen, is the feminine side, is the earth. So that the sun will feed its energy, it will radiate its energy, and the earth will be the place that turns that energy into something that is alive, life, right? So earth is feminine, and so this would be the masculine and feminine axis, and then you have another axis that crosses it. So you have the north. Here's the North Star, and in the north, most of the times, we will have the Death Lord, or the death duality, and here we do see human sacrifice right here. So there is that. So there's no denial that the concept of the human sacrifice existed. And this is a dagger, and this is a human split by the dagger, and there's a Death Lord, which we saw in the previous modules. And in the Mexica version, it coincides. The north is called Mixtlampa, the land of the dead, or the region of the dead. And then to the south, you have Huitzlampa in Nahuatl, in the Mexica version, the land of spines. Some interpret that as the region of sacrifices, or of the things that make you suffer. But I like to think of it as the region of flowers, the region of plants. In this case, in this codex, we have a very peculiar thing, which I don't know if I went over enough when I think I didn't, and we would see that if we go into Mexica, a Mexica course, where there's Huitzilopochtli, the god. It's a mummy that was brought, and the mummy used to be a shaman, or used to be a wizard, which turned himself into an eagle. Some say it was a woman, and that's the woman that's the sorcerer that favored the Mexica over the other tribes, and that's why they became the dominant tribe and created the Anahuac empire. But this concept of this shows us that the concept of a mummy as a symbol of power, of something of power, is very present in would be a classical Maya codex, and it's present in many cultures all over America. Where, for example, in South America, the Andeans have the chulpas. There are like huge tomb quarters, and inside of the quarters, and inside some of them, you'll find ancient mummies. And when it's the Day of the Dead celebration, which now is in All Saints Day, which coincides with they call it now the Amaypacha, the time of the dead, and coincides with the beginning of the rain season of the Hayupacha. And so it's a very important ritual for them. And they take out the mummies out of the chulpas, and they bring them to the town, and they give them, and they dance with them, and they have a party with the mummies. So this mummy, this relationship with the dead is very strong, which I would invite you to check out the coming video about that. And so here we see a mummy. Here we see that mummy in the. This is a sign of Mahakut of Ikibalam of the south. Okay, so let's go into the elements. We saw that this is another, that each culture in Mesoamerica had their own version of this of this worldview. So this is like the worldview placed in a single image, like the four worlds, the four energies. So how do we think about this? So this is the Liking, Mahakutach, Chiking, Ikibalam, and we have fire, air, water, and earth. That would be the primordial placement of the elements. Now, how does it work? Well, one way to see it is that there is four primordial energies that comprise creation. When we get out of lineal thinking, so I was thinking for this class, I was having my meditation and preparing for today's class, and I came up with like a new way of describing this, where when we think of the dimensions, because we're going to go into dimensions today and in the coming classes, the concept of dimensions. And in the modern scientific thinking, they describe dimensions as the dimensions of space, right? Where if you have one dimension, then just a single point. If you have 2 dimensions, you have a line, or a line would be the first dimension. A square would be an area, would give you 2 dimensions. Then as soon as you have volume, you have a 3rd dimension. And then they're not sure of the 4th dimension. Some say it's time, but then they understand that it's difficult to perceive a greater dimension when you're in a lower dimension. And they put the example of an ant, where an ant kind of sees the world linearly, but does it really? And so this is all just, in reality, a lineal thinking of space. So is this really the dimensions? So what is the real centerpiece of creation? I'm going to put the laser there, pointer. So the centerpiece, really, according to the worldview I described in the past sessions, is our attention. Our attention is really what assembles, the assemblage point, what assembles creation. So creation is not external to us. We are what creates creation. Our perception is what creates creation. And so there are different layers. And in this case, we're going to go into layers and dimensions, but even in a more essential sense, there is what we can just simply call the main 4 energies. Okay, so everything is comprised of just like, it's like if you know how an image in a screen is created by RGB, red, green, and blue. An image in print is created by CMYK, 4 colors and black, 3 colors and black. So it would be kind of the same idea, where creation is created by 4 colors or 4 energies or 4 main elements. So that's the true sense of these elements. So there's and these elements, they do have an order, where there's like the first and then what comes after that. So there's like a first layer. There's a primordial, essential element. And then from that, there's a next element, and there's the fourth element. So the primordial element, which one is it? It's fire. And we've talked about fire when we talked about the god of fire, Tohil, and its intention, as we saw as well with the god Itzamna, and of course that's why it's the primordial god, the primordial energy, the intent of the universe as seen as one huge lizard, and then the earth being a physical manifestation of that lizard, being a kind of like a goddess of many snakeheads. It's a continuation of that, symbolized by reptile energy. Intent is symbolized by the reptile energy. And from this, we have to divorce what we get a lot from the New Age waking up kind of mediatic, not mainstream, but still mediatic information we get about the reptilians are the bad guys. I'll tell you a story where they're in the Amazon region where I have my project. There, one of the community members did spot a reptilian, like a humanoid lizard that stood up. He said he stood up. He was just like, he looked like a reptile. He stood up and he took a dive into the lagoon. Just like, his body was human shaped, but he had scales and he looked like a lizard. So I do think there are reptilians, but I don't think they are behind the New World Order, kind of so simply put. And I don't think they're shape-shifting into humans. I think that they're just, what we see in those videos are just different kinds of tricks and coding problems of videos and manipulations, of course, and fake stuff a lot. And it does speak, though, the part of the truth that it does have is that we are kind of preordained and will always be preordained by our reptilian side. And that's what we have to learn from this element and from the Li King. We cannot erase that. We cannot eliminate the predatorial primordial energy. Everything in the universe, that's one of the great Toltec teachings, is the universe is predatorial. Everything is predatorial. So we as humans, we kind of have all of these elements, and we like being here because this is the element of consciousness. So we like to be conscious. We like to be very conscious. And in that consciousness, we like to balance the elements, and of course then we create something that is way beyond just the predation of just eating and predating, and we like to see it in a much more complex dimension, right? Because we are conscious. And so, but then, so this consciousness is going to tell us that we want to be, we don't want to fall into just this element and just be there and not have anything else, because we could be like that. We can't really, but like, we don't want to have this out of balance, right? And I guess the New World Order guys are kind of out of balance, where they're kind of stupid. I mean, if you just think about it, their operations they put forth, and did they really think they were gonna? I mean, they did trick a lot of people, but have tricked a lot of people and continue to trick most of us a lot. But it's not. But how powerful? I mean, if you really look at their plan, they really thought they would actually dominate 100% of everybody's mind. Maybe they're close, but not 100%. So, and when you think about that and how ignorant they have to be to the fact that we are, every single one of us has access to everything in the universe, to all the information, to all the power. We have all the power. And as soon as you realize that, then you're out of their hands. You're out of their power, out of their reach. And then you look at them, it's like, wasn't that just stupid trying to pull that off, right? So I do think they are unbalanced. I do think they're kind of, even them are kind of in a power trap where the demons are just eating them out, and they're just putting forth all kinds of crazy stuff that is, demonic, and of course it's very much fed from this reptilian energy of let's predate, let's try and eat. But then who are they predating for? And the answer is inorganic beings, entities that are not in this planet, that do not have bodies. So they are kind of sucking out the energy of the living and feeding it to some other entity. And I am I'm pretty sure that will get fixed. But then every single one of you here has a part in it. It's not about somebody else. It's about you. You have all the power for that to happen or not. And I hope you can follow me on that. You can continue with all my teaching, so I can show you how, okay? Because it's not a short teaching, okay? It takes a little bit. Okay, so I'm speaking now from the fire. We're covering the fire energy, the intent. So everybody's intent has intent. We have intent centers. The main intent center is our solar plexus. That's where you can imagine and see a snake, a huge snake, a dragon that you want to awake. You do want to awake that. You do want to awake your power to have a lot of desire, a lot of intent. And that intent reaching to what it intends, being able to hunt down what it wants. You do want that energy awake in you. That internal fire, it's also called in Toltequity, the internal fire, your inner fire, is what makes you alive. But we've been so domesticated out of it. We are constantly taught by even our education, just our regular education we were talking about, and that's relevant to today's reading for Hunlahuchtoch, the 11 water fire sign of today. And I did the reading, and I was trying to get that part, and I just got it back now, and I didn't put on the text. I didn't put it on the text on the daily readings that I hope you're getting to watch every day or read every day, and which is the power of our intent and how we are limited out of that power by we fall naturally. We fall very naturally into the unconscious collective programming. So nobody really needs to teach us anything. Like, we're not, I mean, you can say, oh, we're so domesticated into being powerless, into being a slave race. Yes, but at the same time, even if you were out there by your own and you didn't get a lot of domestication, I'm a good example of that, because I had parents that were already non-religious and kind of just figuring out who they were, and so I didn't, and at least they had a sensitivity that's older generations didn't have. So I wasn't forced into anything. I was just allowed to be free. So I didn't get a lot of that domestication. But at the same time, I did fall into it. And it all the time we have that where we can fall into the just regular mindset, the domestication mindset, because it's part of the collective subconscious or unconscious. And that collective subconscious or unconscious would have these four elements, and the fire element in that would be some type of a ring. It's kind of like a ring. I'm seeing it as a ring, kind of like a ring that limits how much intent you can have, how much power you can really have. And you will learn in the Toltec teachings about the four enemies and how the third one is power. So it is, you do want power, but at the same time you can be taken over by power. So how do you balance that? Well, that's a teaching for another lesson, or another course. But this so far here is where we learn this essential knowledge, this intellectual understanding, this theoretical understanding of it, because then we do have to find ways to put this into practice, and that's the point of the journeys and of the workshops, the presential workshops. But then, of course, you can be taught techniques and things that you can practice on your own, and that's very important. A constant self-stalking. You're constantly stalking yourself. You have to be constantly stalking yourself and seeing, am I falling into the domesticated mindset? Am I feeding entities I don't want to be feeding with my energy? That's a life's long work. So 20 years that I've been doing it is not a lot. It's really not a lot. So that speaks of the fire. I hope I've covered. There's always so much to say about each one, but so we're going to see that the 20 signs that we'll be learning in the Cholkij have this primordial orientation and elements. So there's going to be 5 signs of each element, but then there's another layer, and we'll see that. But first we have to kind of just familiarize ourselves with the first layer, the primordial layer, where the Imosh, the dragon, the first sign in the Cholkij chart, is the first one, right? Let me cover that with this real quick. Show you that you can have a placement of the Cholkij that begins with the fire and with the water. Right? The Bats, the Hun Bats, and the Hun Imosh. So you have actually 2 charts. And we'll learn that. So we have to, right now we're just going to learn like the first one, the fire placement, okay, of the elements, where the fire is the first element. So what's next is air. So the intent is this whole bunch of, also the Toltecs teaches about the lines, the intent lines, the universe seen as a web of strings that are intent strings. What connects you to another person? We're now being connected. Each one of you is now connecting with each other and connecting with me through intent streams. There's like strings that connect us, right? They can be a few of them. It can be just one or a couple of them, or they can be like a whole bunch of them. And this is what connects you to other people when you have a strong relationship with someone, because they were your family or because you had a love relationship with them. Then you connected a whole lot of strings. You have a whole lot of strings, right? And there is a lot of work that is done in the Toltec practices of how do you manage that. Because it's not about just cutting the strings away, no. You have to just, it's really more about untangling them. And we are all here to untangle the strings. And the universe is this weird place where all the strings were nicely ordered, and then this great mass of strings allowed the creation. It's kind of weird, but that's what allowed creation, the strings to be all just meshed up. So we in our consciousness, in the self-reflection process of the universe, are going to be finding the way, and the universe is a self-conscious. So the universe is a chaos that is trying to find order. That's another way to say it. And we are a reflection of that as a humanity. So we're going to be living chaos, but we're going to be finding order as we progress in our life and in the generations and in time and etc. So these strings are all represented by the chikin, right? By the leaking. So it's kind of all messy until it gains a spirit. So here we get Mahakutag, the symbol is the North Star, the Shaman Ek star, which is represented by this little shell and this thing on the head. And this thing, which I interpret as a reflection of its own dialogue. So it's like he's like speaking to himself, but that language that is coming out of him, he's speaking to himself. And we do that all the time. And it's interesting how that's seen bad by modern overworld culture. Like if you're speaking to yourself, oh, that's a bad thing. Don't be doing that. You're crazy. But we have to do that. We do that all the time internally. Of course, there is a whole practice. So what's the practice here in Toltec teaching and even in other cultures is, for example, in the Andean world, the inner silence, the teachings of inner silence, amuki, silence. And that's getting very complicated today. And that's part of the strategy of the bad guys is putting out as much noise as they can. The more noise, sound noise, and also light noise. And I'm into this research now, or not into this research. It's not like I'm researching it seriously, no. But through spirit is the revelation, the information is coming to me of how sound and light are linked. There is something that joins them. I want to find out. I want to understand that. So be it light or be it sound, you can create a lot of pollution, a lot of noise with sound and with lights. And we're addicted to that. And that's probably going to be, and I've thought of this before, said it before, that is going to be our greatest challenge in growing up as a humanity, is our addiction to the noise, specifically to the light noise, to the little lights. Oh, we're so attracted by the little lights of the city, the little lights of computers, the little lights of screens, the little lights of and it has to do with this, maybe with this primordial element thing of us being attracted primordially to fire, the fire of creation. And I guess we just have to replace. It's simply about replacing the stories that we like so much watching on screens for, wouldn't you like to be having this story around the fire? Like, I mean, we could be doing exactly the same thing right now, but on a fire. And it can be so good that the fire could be behaving in a way that it would be showing you the images. Instead of needing this presentation, the fire would create the presentation. So we have to get back to that and understand that it's not going back, it's going forward. Okay. Of of course, then we are going to bring a new layer to it. It's good. And that maturing, that whole idea, that whole intelligence comes from the air. Air is intelligence. Air is the mind. So fire is the intent, and air is the mind. So the intent is kind of just pointless without a mind. It's like, let's think of a predator. He's hungry. So intent is the hunger. That is the animal part that wants to eat. But then it does require some type of a mind, some type of intelligence, some type of a spirit. Now, what's a spirit here? It's also this kind of one idea and one plan or one order. So even a jaguar, like he's very hungry, he is going to have some type of vision or memory and think, oh, I remember how at this time of the year, the turtles like to go into that stream I used to go to. So he comes up with a plan to go to the stream and to see if he can find a turtle to eat. Or that plan can be, I don't know, there's so many things that jaguars eat. I guess sometimes if they get very hungry, they'll go for a wrestle with an alligator, but that can go very badly. So I don't think that's their favorite choice. But they come up with a plan. Everybody has a plan. Everybody has a mind. And it's like you have to grab a position. Maybe it's not the best plan, and that happens a lot, right? Where once we're down here in consciousness and memory, remembering what we did, and we say, man, what a stupid plan did I just go through, right? But then we have to understand that at that point, it was the plan. You have to have a plan. You have to make a decision. We have to have stances. We have to have positions. We have to have egos. We have to have archetypes. We need structures. So the North is the place of structures. So you can say that in a very primordial universe, the fire turned into the fire, the intent was given a structure, a language. So this is the place of language as well, where languages come from. Thanks to the language, so many things get structured. Even creation stories all around many cultures speak of, and even the Bible included, speaks of creation comes through the words. The world was created because God spoke it. God sang it in some other cultures. That's why the Icaros is so important in the Amazon world. The songs, the creation songs, and in other cultures, the Wixárika, the Toltecs, the Toltec Wixárika, the Huicholes, they have when they have their ceremonies and eat jicuri, some call it peyote, they sing a song. The Maracame sings a song. The main shaman, sings a song. And that song includes all of creation. It recreates, it remembers their whole creation story. Everybody gets to hear the creation story around the fire in a jicuri ceremony of the Wixárikas. But at the same time, that story gets updated, gets inputs from what's happening in the ceremony. It gets shaped by the spirit of the ceremony. So song, words, mind is the crucial structure of the universe. Without it, we cannot manifest anything else. We cannot come into the next thing. So sometimes the air is considered the maturing, okay? The maturing, maduration, I don't know if that word exists. Maturing. So this is the birth, and this is maturing.
Yavatuhu pani enchamukin ilakayo kastu